Can y'all believe it's already June? So May wasn't the best month reading-wise. I had an uptick in school responsibilities that haven't really gone away, but it meant that I read the least I read all year. I still got in 13 books, but one of those was a DNF that I had been postponing. I didn't really read any of that 13th book, so it doesn't really count. But all in all, not my best, but really, as long as I read 10 books a month, to me, that would be a personally successful reading month. If I'm really pushing myself, I can get above 20. So 10 books really just means I'm making time to read even when I am busy with other things, which is my goal, not to lose the habit. So with that said, with my soapbox over, let's go with the book that I DNF'd. Jeffrey Eugenie's Middlesex. I got about 70% of this book about 3 months ago when the Queerlit Weekendathon happened. I started this book. I didn't finish it. And then I kept postponing it because I wasn't in the mood. 3 months later, I'm finally freeing myself, which I hate that I'm doing that because I didn't hate this book. I'm giving it 3 stars. I think I can still rate it and count it as being read because I got 70% to it. I lost interest. I lost interest, which sucks. The writing wasn't bad. I was enjoying it. It was amusing at times. It was entertaining. But I think part of it has to do with the fact that when it first started, I just kind of lost interest really quick because like the first quarter of the book, I think, was spent looking at his parents and then his parents leading up to his birth. Now, if you don't know what this is about, because I should always start with that, Jesus, you have a androgynous man born with both genitalia, and he's mistaken as a female. A lot of the story is built on how his life sort of came into being. It does explore how this kind of thing might happen or be more inclined to happen, which is interesting, but at the same time, I was expecting more of a focus on his life, his experience, and it was more than just about his life. It was about his family. I guess I just wasn't in the mood. It wasn't a bad book. People love this book, and rightfully so. I just wish it resonated more with me. It's one of those just flunks where I just don't love all the historical fiction that I read. It sucks. It sucks because I can't think of a good reason to say that book sucks, because it doesn't. And I wish I could just turn it on, to click, to go, Josh, you like it, it's perfect, it's solved. So now let's talk about my Asian Readathon reads. I read 4 books for the Asian Readathon, only 3 of them really counted. So let's say why I didn't count. So there were 4 prompts to read a book that was by an author or had a main character, like a story that was different than your own. And then a book by an Asian author who has a character or is similar to you in some way. And then there was read a book that was recommended to you by an Asian booktuber. And then there was one more. Read an Asian author, yes. There was also a buddy read of Little Fires Everywhere, but I'd already read that, so I didn't read that. And my choice for the read a book recommended by an Asian booktuber was not a book by an Asian author, and that is The Starless Sea. While I was doing the vlog, which I ended up not posting because of how busy I was with school, it was a mess of a vlog, but it occurred to me that, Jesus, Josh, you're supposed to read a book by an Asian author, a book that an Asian booktuber recommends that is by an Asian author. Got a thing for things. Recommended this book. I mean, in the sense that she loved this book, so I figured I would read it. That's technically a recommendation. But I'm dumb to think that that meant don't read an Asian author, and I don't know why. It's really embarrassing, but you know what? It's on my TBR, so I'm happy I got it out of the way, and I still read 3 Asian authors. And besides, I'll be reading more Asian authors. Another book that I read in the Asian Readathon was 1,000 Beginnings and Endings, edited by Ellen O and Elsie Chapman. And this is an anthology of young adult 15 retellings of Asian myths and legends. I really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 4 stars. I didn't love all the stories, but I definitely really liked the way they were reimagined. I was going to do a standalone review of my favorite stories, but I just never got around to it. It's been so long since I've read it now that I probably won't do that. But there were a few in here that I really enjoyed. I think one of them was by an author I read before, Alyssa Wong, I think. Yeah, Alyssa Wong, Olivia's Table. I really liked that story, probably my favorite. I felt like this was a really creative set of stories and exploring myths that I'm not that familiar with, and I would definitely read more books like this. And I was happy with this. This was a book, I want to say was the 2nd or 3rd book that I read for the Asian Readathon, and I wish I read it sooner because I liked it more than the other 4. I read Warcross by Marie Lu, and I gave this 4 stars. This is like a mix between Hunger Games and Ready Player One. I enjoyed it. I read this actually as a book club for honestly, it left me liking it less than when I went into it. Like, I thought it was fun, and I thought there were surprises in there. Some of them were somewhat predictable, but at the same time, the story was kind of simplistic. I do think that she could have done more. Like, there's some love interest in here that feels kind of forced for the narrative. Maybe some convenient plot. All in all, though, it was still surprising, and I'm still interested in reading the next one if I can get my hands on it. Then the other book that I read was The Highlander Sea Woman by Lisa C. This is another historical fiction that I read, and I did enjoy this. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Again, it's a situation that, like, I feel like, why do I read books that I know I may not love? I think part of it is just that I do like to diversify what I'm reading, not just the author. It's not the author or the fact that it's about an island of sea women, Korean women who are just fundamentally different than I am. It's more the fact that it's historical fiction. It sometimes doesn't always hit as hard to me, and that's fine. I still enjoy it. It's a perspective that I like to consume, even if it's not an expected 5-star. I don't know if that makes sense. I didn't say, but this was the book that I read as an author or a main character that is different than me. Now, the main character and the author are women. The culture is different. Everything about it is fundamentally different than my own experience. Warcross was the one that I read that was similar to me because it's science fiction. I'm a scientist. But I liked the story. I thought it was a really well-written narrative of this evolution of this Highlander Sea Woman and how they sort of lost their culture, or rather, had their culture stolen away from them. And I thought it was a really interesting exploration of the history, which I'm assuming is based in reality. I haven't actually looked into it, but I thought it was well crafted and entertaining. With those out of the way, let's talk about 3 more books that I read. I read The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, one that gets a lot of hate, which honestly, I didn't think it was that bad. Now granted, I don't read a lot of thrillers, but I thought it was fun. It was fine. It was a good experience. It surprised me. Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. What was it about though? A woman on a boat sees a murder. Dun, dun, dun. The next book I read, which I don't want to get too much into, was Night Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. A book that I noticed by a lot of people that I follow didn't give great rating to. For me, I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I will say that I read this while listening to the audiobook on my bike at night, like literally only on my bike. There's a vlog that's coming out next weekend, I think. That's when I plan on releasing that. And it was a lot of fun. I think it really lent to me being creeped out by this book. It is more creepy than it is scary. And it's also more psychological than it is strictly supernatural, even though it is alluding to this narrative of this girl who might be possessed, basically. I cannot wait until I get to share my experience reading that because it was so much fun. I'm definitely going to be doing the biking at night, listening to an audiobook, like a horror book at night. Again, it's so creepy and unsettling. Next book that I read, Albright's Madam Secretary, a memoir. This is a memoir by the first ever female Secretary of State in the U.S. If you're not from the U.S., Secretary of State is essentially the person who's in charge of foreign affairs. This is her experience in her life leading up to it and during her time in office. This was published just a couple of years after she and the Bill Clinton administration left office. This is her experience. I thought this thick of a book was great. It was really good. I did not feel like I was being spoken to by a politician trying to sell a narrative. I felt like she believed what she had to say. She was trying to be as upfront with her feelings, with her opinions, and with the facts. She has been a teacher, may still be a teacher, I don't remember, and that's very apparent in this. It is like a big lecture, and I could see that being a big turnoff to a lot of people. Now, personally, I loved having the facts. It was a little dense for me. I don't think I retained all of them, especially the parts that came before my lifetime, but I still really enjoyed hearing her talk about it. I would be interested in hearing this period of time spoken from a different perspective, or maybe from a historian rather than a politician, because while she does share when she made a mistake, she does share opposing opinions and why she thinks they're wrong, she doesn't necessarily give a full-fledged rundown of the opposing side. I mean, it is her memoir. I think it was remarkably unbiased so far as it can be from a politician's perspective. I don't think she was intentionally trying to persuade it one way or the other. For that, I really liked it. I actually bought another book by her, Fascism, which she released not long after Trump got elected because, surprise, he's a fascist. What is that TikTok song? He's Savage. That can be a song. We could turn savage into fascist and make that work. I'll work on that for you all. So now let's talk about the amazing experience that I had reading some of Books and Lala's favorite books. Now, I know Gabby Reeves did this before me, and it's also kind of a copy of what Kayla did in January when she read book 2 her favorites. But I did plan this before Gabby released hers, and I did this for Ariel Bissett too. It's just something that I'm enjoying doing, and I plan on continuing to do, because I just think it's a fun way to read books that my favorites like to read. I like making videos dedicated to my favorites, and if I like something, I like to talk about it. And it was really a successful experience. If you haven't seen that vlog, please do. It was a lot of fun. What did I read first? What I read first in this universe, in every universe, was Dig by A.S. King. I fucking loved this shit. It was so good. I think it might be my favorite. It is so poignant and so relevant. Exploration of racism, the way families look at racism and how it's sort of just ingrained in people's thought, and it's just with perfection, utter perfection, and the way the characters all intertwined, it's just so good. It's just like, I should reread this, shouldn't I? That was the first book I read. The second book that I read in this universe, because I did use a quantum number generator, which would have shaken things up, because free will is an illusion. The first of the Illuminae files by Amie, Kaufman, and Kristoff. I enjoyed this. I gave it 4.5? I gave it 4.5 stars. So I thought the first half was kind of slow. While fun, I just felt like it wasn't that great. In the second half, perfection, like 5 stars. And so you meet in the middle, it's 4.5 stars. I liked what they were trying to do. It did feel a little gimmicky at first, and I didn't love the relationship. I didn't love the relationship characters, but there's a twist in there, and the plot focuses on a certain mechanic that you see sometimes in futuristic technology stories, and I really liked it. I ate it up. Nom, nom, nom. After that, I read, oh wait, was this book 2? That might have been book 3. I'm sure in some universe I did read that second, so it's basically kind of right. Third or second, I read When Diplomat Rishi by Sandhya Menon. And I gave this one 3.5 out of 4 stars. Out of 5 stars. 3.5 out of 5 stars. I liked this book. I thought it was adorable and fun to read. But I don't love romance, and I don't think it just didn't work for that reason. I had some problems with the setup, but then again, I think that's the whole point of the story, exploring the inherent problems with the way people from our culture, how relationships can be set up. It really addresses that head on. I don't think there is an easy answer on what the right answer is for this kind of situation, but I still felt like the author addressed it really well. And from that sense, it was a really good book, even if I didn't love the romance side. I mean, it was fun, cute, but not top tier for me. And that's really a personal preference. The next book that I read, and the last, was Blanca and Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. And I said this book's name wrong. I said Roja wrong every time except for like once in that vlog, and I am so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. This is a retelling of sort of a Snow White, and has magical realism. It was set in a modern day, but has a really fairy tale type feel to it, which I absolutely adored. I love the tone, I love the writing, I love the exploration of queer and trans characters, and the way it was included into the conversation. I love the overall narrative. It's about these two sisters who are part of a line of women who basically have to sacrifice something because of how the line began. I think I go deeper in the vlog. The last book I want to talk about that I actually finished was The Black Cabinet by Jill Watts. This was a book that I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars to. It's a nonfiction book on the politics of race in the Black Cabinet during the age of FDR. He was the only president to be president, I think 4, maybe 5 times, and he is often allotted this victory of having started this Black Cabinet, this group of individuals which he looked to for advice in issues relating to Black Americans. And that was not true at all. It is in fact an informal group that was started and held together by this one figure, Mary Bethune, who is really responsible for getting this group of Black individuals who were in different positions of power in the government and getting their voice amplified by sticking together. Kind of like we see today with the Black Lives Movement. The reason it's being so successful right now is that people are being forced to hear because people are standing together, which again, it's why you have to speak up. It's not enough to be silent and supportive. To support, you have to speak up. And this book really represents that. It shows how you have to amplify Black voices. You have to give them a position of power so they have the opportunity to make change possible. Because a little bit of change that did happen during FDR, and even after FDR, was set up by this group. This group was an integral part of that. I don't know about you, but I didn't learn about this shit in high school or even college. And it's an atrocity because this is a fundamental part of the civil rights movement. I think it's really fascinating. Hey everybody, phone issues mean I have to re-record this conclusion. I don't know what it is on my phone, but sometimes when I'm recording, it will just corrupt a video. But I think what I was just summarizing was how I really liked the Black Cabinet book, how it inspired me to buy a lot of new nonfiction history and politics books. I liked how it was both educational while also really engaging and just encouraging to me as someone who enjoys politics. Because personally, I think politics should be engaging. Fun might not be the best word, but engaging can be fun even if it is exhausting. And other than that, I hope you're all staying safe. I know it's a really difficult time right now. I appreciate you stopping by to watch my video. And until next time, have a great day.